DS. They cut me out of the will, called me selfish, and showed up at my apartment demanding $3,500. So, I showed them the door. When I realized that my parents had left everything to my brother, I cut off financial support. A month later, Mom texted me, "Mortgage is due. No pleasantries or apologies." My response startled them. My name is John, and any reservations I had about my place in my family were eradicated the day I learned about the will. It wasn't even a dramatic sit-down in which my parents revealed the news. No, I found out purely by mistake, via sheer dumb luck. It happened a few months back while I was at their house, the same house I had helped them pay for over the previous 5 years. The mortgage, the occasional supermarket run, and even household repairs. I was the one who kept it all together. Meanwhile, my brother Eric did nothing. When I say nothing, I actually mean nothing. No job, no obligations, just lying about, waiting for life to deliver him everything on a silver platter, which evidently my parents were all too glad to do. That day, I was assisting my father with some paperwork because, as usual, neither of them could be bothered to figure out how to do things for themselves. He had requested me to scan certain documents for him, mostly legal and financial in nature, and I hadn't given it much thought until I saw them. The folder labeled estate plan and last will and testament was right there on the stack. I don't usually snoop, but curiosity got the better of me. After all, I had been the one to ensure they had a roof over their heads. It wasn't out of the ordinary to ponder how things were set up for the future. So I opened it, and what I saw made my stomach drop. Everything, literally everything, was going to Eric. The house, their savings, and their property. There was no mention of me, except for some generic remarks about how much they loved both of their sons. Yes, sure, equally. That is why they ensured that their golden child would inherit everything, while the son who kept them afloat received only a footnote. I felt foolish. Here I was bending over backwards for them, ensuring that their bills were paid on time and that they never had to worry about food, while they sat back and prepared for a future in which I received nothing. And Eric wasn't just sluggish, he was entitled. He never raised a finger to assist them, never donated $1. Yet he had somehow persuaded them that he deserved everything. Perhaps because he was the younger son. Perhaps because they have always babied him. Perhaps he understood just how to influence them. Whatever the reason, they'd made their decision. I sat there, staring at the paper, my hands quivering with wrath and betrayal. How long did they plan this? Had they always planned for me to be their free financial safety net, offering nothing in return? Accomplished. Did they ever appreciate what I accomplished for them? I had no idea how long I'd been sitting there, but my father eventually realized that I wasn't scanning anything. "Hello, John. What's taking so long?" he inquired, stepping back into the room. I didn't even bother hiding the will. I raised it up and looked him in the eyes. "So, this is how it is," I explained, my voice unervingly calm. "Everything to Eric, after all I've done for you." My father's face turned pale for a moment. Then he sighed like I was a small child having a tantrum. "John, it's not what you think, really." I snapped, "Because it appears very clear to me. I've been paying your mortgage, assisting with groceries, and cleaning up the house while Eric has done nothing. And you still believe he's the only one who cares?" Dad was embarrassed, but instead of explaining himself, he simply said, "It's complicated." That was it. There was no apology or attempt to defend it beyond those two worthless sentences. Just a poor excuse and an eager expression, as if he was waiting for me to drop it and return to being their personal ATM. I should have gone out right then, but I wanted to hear from each of them. So I called out for my mother. When she came in and saw the will in my hands, she didn't respond well. She had the decency to appear guilty, but what she said made my fury boil. "John, honey, you don't need the inheritance," she whispered softly, like she was doing me a favor. "You do a good job. You have a strong sense of self. Eric struggles. We just want to make sure he is taken care of." That was the moment something inside of me shattered. They didn't even refute it. They understood exactly what they were doing, and they believed it was entirely right. They had spent years tolerating Eric's sloth, and now they planned to reward it by giving him everything, while I was treated as an afterthought. I took a long breath, tightened my jaw, and placed the will on the table. "Got it," I said, my voice strangely calm. Glad to know where we stand. Then I turned and marched out of the house, disregarding their protests and slamming the door behind me. They had made a decision. Now it was time for me to make mine. I did not return to their place after that. I did not call. I did not check in. For the first time in years, I let them deal with their own dang problems. If they needed to mend something, they could figure it out. If they wanted groceries, they could make their own way to the store. Most significantly, if the mortgage bill arrived, I would no longer be responsible for paying it. The hush lasted almost 2 weeks. At first, I guess they thought I was simply pouting and would crawl back like usual. Perhaps they expected me to calm down and apologize for questioning their choice. But as the days passed with no news from me, and more significantly, no financial assistance, you could almost feel a shift in their mindset. Then one afternoon, my phone vibrated. Dad texted, "The property taxes are due." That was it. No hello. No how have you been. No I apologize for what happened. No we sincerely appreciate everything you've done. Just a cold, transactional message, as if I were still a walking bank that they could use whenever they wanted. I stared at the computer for a time, almost amused by how predictable the results were. They truly believed they could just demand money, as if nothing had happened, and that I would continue to serve as their financial safety net. Even after they made it plain I was disposable. I gently typed back, "I'm sure Eric will handle it since the house is his and all." It took exactly 5 minutes until my mother called. I let it ring. Then another text came in. Mom texted, "John, please don't behave like this. We need to talk." Oh, now they wanted to speak. Now that their debts were stacking up, reality was finally staring them in the face. I waited an hour before responding. "There is nothing to talk about. You've made your choice. Now you can live with it." I figured it was the end of the day. I had made my position clear, and no part of me felt terrible about it. But then Eric decided to join in. His text arrived late that evening, and the moment I saw his name appear on my phone, I knew it was going to be something nasty. Sure enough, when I opened it, I was met with utter entitlement. Eric texted, "Dude, why are you such a drama queen? It's not a huge deal. Just help them out as you normally do." I almost laughed. Not a huge deal. He actually seemed as if I had no right to be upset about this. I wrote back, "No, I think you've got it covered since you're the favorite and all." Eric texted, "Oh my God, are you really furious about the will? Grow up, guy. It's only money." Oh, suddenly it was only about money. It didn't matter anymore now that he had the inheritance. The hypocrisy was astonishing. I shot back. "Then you won't mind spending some of that money to pay your mortgage, right?" Silence. A few minutes later, my mother texted me again, this time in full guilt trip mode. Mom texted, "John, we are your parents. The family takes care of one another. We did so much for you growing up, and now you're simply abandoning us." I had to take a deep breath to keep from tossing my phone across the room, giving up on them. I'd spent years ensuring they never had to suffer while they coddled and praised Eric's laziness. And now that they'd had to face the repercussions of their own actions, I was the bad guy. I was not falling for it. "Not this time," I replied. "You made it clear I wasn't part of the family when you left me out of the will. Now Eric can take care of you." I can imagine my mother gasping loudly. She had a knack for playing the victim even when she was in the wrong. A few minutes later, my father sent another text, and this one made me furious. He texted, "We're not asking for much, just enough to cover the mortgage for a few more months until we figure things out. Don't be selfish." Selfish? The word caused my blood to boil. I've been bailing them out for years, devoting my own money, time, and energy to making their lives easier. I had done all a good son should do. So how did they repay me? They made sure I received nothing in exchange. And now that I was finally advocating for myself, I was the selfish one. I tightened my jaw, took a long breath, and typed back, "No, I'm done." I then shut off my phone. They'd made their choice. They were now going to have to live with it. The stillness lasted one day. I knew my parents would not give up so quickly, but I wasn't prepared for what happened next. The next morning, I received a notification on my phone, a bank transfer request. I grimaced as I unlocked my phone to check. It was from my mother. She had genuinely emailed me a request for money, as if I were an ATM. What is the amount? $3,500. I looked at it with amazement. There was no message or explanation, just a cold, blatant demand for the precise amount required to pay off their late mortgage. They didn't even ask anymore. They just assumed I would give in. I declined without hesitation. Not even 5 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Mom. I let it ring. Then followed another text. Mom sent a text. "John, I know you saw the request. Why did you decline it?" I took my time before responding. "Because it's not my responsibility. Try Eric." Another call. Declined. Then another text. Her message read, "We're going to lose the house if you don't help us." Oh, this was an emergency. After years of exploiting me as a walking wallet, they were finally facing the repercussions. I responded, "Maybe you should have thought about that before deciding I didn't matter." A few seconds later, Dad joined in. He sent a message. "You really going to let your parents become homeless?" That one had me laughing out loud. The manipulation was so obvious, it was almost comical. They weren't broke. They were not going to be put on the streets. They simply didn't want to go into their personal savings because they were accustomed to me covering everything. I disregarded them for the remainder of the day. That night, I received an SMS from Eric. "Dude, just send them the money already. You're making this a bigger deal than it is." I clenched my jaw. This entitled little punk thought he could lecture me. I responded, "You mean the same money you're inheriting? Why don't you send it?" His response came quickly. Eric responded with a message. I don't have that kind of cash right now." Oh, so it was now about cost. He was fine with me draining my accounts, but whenever it was his turn, he had nothing to offer. I responded, "Guess you better figure out then, bro. You're the one they chose." No response. I went to bed feeling strangely peaceful, as if I had finally broken free from years of manipulation. However, the situation worsened the following day. I was at work when I received a call from my apartment's front desk. "Hey, John. Your parents are here." I almost dropped my phone. "What?" She paused before responding. "They're saying it's an emergency and that you won't answer their calls." Oh my God. They showed up at my flat simply because I stopped paying their bills. I took a deep breath and pinched the bridge of my nose. "Please don't let them up. I'm not expecting them." There was an awkward moment. They're being kind of pushy." I clenched my jaw. "I don't care. They can leave." I hung up and instantly received a text from Mom. "We're downstairs. Open the door." No question, no explanation, just another demand. I didn't respond. Another text message from Mom. "John, we're not leaving until you talk to us." I breathed sharply and stood up from my desk. They were not about to back down. Fine. I was about to teach them a lesson they would never forget. I snatched my keys and stormed downstairs, my blood seething. I was not scared. I was infuriated. The audacity of these guys to show up at my house uninvited and demand money as if I were their personal ATM. Not even a phone call beforehand. Not even a half-hearted apology. Just a straight-up ambush. They imagined they could corner me into submission like I was a naive child. I yanked the door open, and there they were, Mom, Dad, and of course, Eric, all poised in a tight little formation, as if they were preparing to hold a family intervention. Mom had her arms crossed, her typical disappointed mother expression locked and loaded. Dad stood rigid, hands in his pockets, his expression a mix of annoyance and entitlement, as if he couldn't believe I was forcing him to do this in person. And Eric, the little parasite, had the gall to appear bored, as if the entire thing was only somewhat inconvenient for him, as if he was not the cause of any of this. When Mom saw me, she went into full theatrical. "John, finally, we need to talk." I leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed. "No, you need to leave." She blinked, as if she was unable to absorb what I had just said. "Excuse me? You heard me." My voice was calm, controlled, and firm. "You don't get to just show up at my apartment demanding money. That's insane." Dad gave a quick scoff. "Are you really going to let us lose the house over a petty grudge?" I gave out a frigid laugh. "Petty grudge? Oh, you mean the one where you decided I was good enough to pay your bills, but not good enough to be in your will? That grudge." Mom gasped and clutched her chest as if I just hit her. "John, that's not fair. We only did what we thought was best for the family." I tilted my head. "Best for the family? You mean best for Eric? Just say it." Silence. A prolonged, heavy silence. Eric, who had been unusually silent until now, finally spoke up. Look, man, I don't even want to be involved in this. I didn't ask for. I turned to him, finally letting go. No, you just sit back and take everything that's handed to you. You're 28 years old, Eric. Get a damn job. His face grew crimson. Dude, what the hell? I stepped closer. You heard me. You want to inherit the house. Start acting like a homeowner. You want to be the golden child? Start paying their damn bills. I'm done being your personal bank. Eric averted his gaze, his attention drawn to the sidewalk. Mom took a deep breath and refocused her guilt trip. John, he's your brother. I nodded. Yep, and I've supported him longer than you ever have. Dad's face clouded. You're being selfish. I laughed, a true, sincere laugh. That's generous of you, I said, gesturing between them. You two decided that Eric deserved everything, and I deserve nothing. And now that it's time to pay the price for that choice, you're trying to manipulate me into fixing it for you. Not happening. Mom's voice became sharper. We thought you'd be mature about this. I raised an eyebrow. Mature? You mean quietly accept that I was betrayed and keep paying your bills? Because let's be real, that's what you wanted. Dad stepped nearer, attempting to loom over me as he had when I was a child. John, we raised you. We fed you, clothed you, gave you everything. The least you can do is help us now. I looked him dead in the eyes. I already did for years, and you repaid me by cutting me out. Mom's lips twitched. We thought you'd understand. I exhaled and shook my head. Oh, I understand perfectly. I understand that I was never family to you. Just a paycheck. Once again, there is silence. An oppressive and unmistakable silence. I turned to see Eric, who was still trying to be invisible. And you? What's your excuse? You had years to grow up, to get your life together, to contribute, but you didn't because you knew they'd take care of you. And when they're gone, you just expected me to step in. Huh? Eric eventually snapped. What do you want me to say, man? I didn't ask for this. I nodded slowly. Right. You didn't ask. You just benefited. His mouth opened and then closed. Nothing. He had nothing. Mom tried one final guilt trip. John, we're family. Family takes care of each other. I stared at her for a long time before responding. Exactly. So, why didn't you take care of me? She froze. No words, no rebuttal. Nothing. I exhaled slowly, feeling lighter than I had in years. We're done here. I turned and walked back inside, shutting the door behind me. My phone buzzed before I even got back to my couch. Dad sent a new text. Wow. After everything we've done for you, are you really going to abandon us? I smirked as I typed back. You abandoned me. I'm just finally accepting it. I sent the message and then banned their phone numbers, but I had no idea that blocking them would simply make matters worse. Things quickly spiraled out of control. Less than a day after blocking them, I began receiving posts on Facebook. My parents were never very tech-savvy, but they knew how to voice their problems online, especially when they felt self-righteous. At first, I assumed it was simply my folks being dramatic. I mean, that was their go-to move, throwing out family strife for all to see. But as I browsed through their pages, I realized it wasn't just about me not assisting with finances anymore. The posts were camouflaged as family affection, but they were carefully veiled attacks on me. Mom had written about how she did not raise her son to be so selfish, and how a true family assists one another no matter what. A handful of her acquaintances said I was a letdown and out of touch with what actually mattered. Then Dad responded with his own post. So, a full family should never turn their back when you need them most. We gave everything to our children, and this is how we're repaid. My son, who should be helping us in our golden years, has chosen to abandon us. He tagged me and left a passive-aggressive comment. The real kicker, however, came from Eric. I should have known he'd join in on the drama. He shared a post full of inaccuracies. Some people think that family is just about money. They don't understand that family is about love and sacrifice. I'd do anything for my parents, but some people just don't get that. They're too wrapped up in themselves to realize that true love is about helping those who raised you. He even made a disguised shot at me. I wish some people could learn what it really means to be family. I love my parents, and I'm grateful for everything they've done. That was it. That was my breaking point. I sat there staring at the TV in bewilderment. How had things come to this point? They turned the entire situation around. They made me the villain. The selfish son who refused to assist his selfless parents. The son who didn't appreciate all the affection parents showed me throughout the years. How could they? I'd always been the person who worked hard, the person who donated, the person who has never complained. I had to accept the fact that they had convinced themselves they were correct, and now they were telling everyone that I was the problem. I didn't want to react immediately. I took a step back, collected my thoughts, and waited several hours. I wanted to be sure I wasn't just jumping into something out of rage. But when I thought about it, I decided I couldn't let them get away with it. If they were going to drag my name through the mud, I was going to correct the record. So I grabbed out my phone and began typing. I created my own Facebook account, which I kept for close friends and true family, and wrote a lengthy update. I was not interested in playing their game. I didn't want to get caught up in petty back and forth. I want to tell the truth. This is what I wrote. I know I've been silent for the past several days, but I can't keep it up much longer. My relatives have been spreading false information about me online. They've painted me as the villain, the selfish person who refuses to assist my parents in their time of need. I'm here to set the record straight. I've always assisted my family. I've been helping with bills, paying for groceries, and supporting them in any way I can since I was able to find work. However, there comes a moment when you can no longer give without being respected. Over the years, I've seen my parents favor Eric, giving him everything: the house, the money, the attention, while I was expected to keep contributing without ever being treated equally. I'm sure some of you are thinking, well, that's just how family works. But here's the truth. Family should be reciprocal. When I learned that my parents had left everything to Eric in their will, I recognized how one-sided our relationship had been. They did not give me a second thought. They've made it apparent that I'm only the one they can rely on when things go tough, not the one they truly want around, unless it's convenient for them. For years, I've been responsible for paying their lifestyle. I've paid for vacations, bills, and even assisted with things like house taxes, and for what? To be viewed as a backup plan. I am done. I'm not merely a wallet from which they may withdraw money whenever they need it. I am a human being and deserve to be respected. I've earned the right to be treated like I'm important, not just when they need something from me. Eric needs to mature. He's 28 years old and has never worked in his life. He has never taken responsibility for anything. My parents have been enabling him for so long that it's no surprise he's their favorite. But here's the thing. He's had plenty of time to organize his life, and now it's time for him to stand on his own 2 feet. Everyone who has been following this drama and supporting my parents should understand that every tale has 2 sides. Yes, family is important, but so is mutual respect. I've contributed enough for a lifetime, and I won't apologize for taking a step back. This is not about abandoning my family. This is my last decision to choose myself. And to my parents, I wish you the best, but I'm done being your doormat. I hit the post, and I instantly felt relieved. For the first time in my life, I was telling the world the truth about my family, how they had taken advantage of me for years and had always expected me to be the one to save them without ever considering what I needed. I wasn't going to let their story dominate my life anymore. The reactions were swift. Some people I hadn't spoken with in years came forward to offer their support. A number of my cousins, acquaintances of my parents, and even some distant relatives liked the article and sent me private messages apologizing for what I had gone through. It felt liberating to finally have the truth out there, not buried beneath guilt trips and deceptive conduct. Then followed the backlash. My parents and Eric went crazy. Eric messaged me, "You're a traitor. You really have to air all our business out like this? You have no respect for family." Dad called me and virtually yelled into the phone, "You've ruined everything, John. You'll regret this. You'll regret cutting us off. You'll regret turning your back on your own family." But I did not regret it. Not for 1 second. I blocked them all. I was finished. And for the first time in my life, I was free. Free of the toxic grasp they held on me for so long. As the days passed, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. I had had enough of being treated as less than. I was tired of always having to solve everyone else's problems. And now I finally had the freedom to live my life on my own terms. So no, I don't feel horrible about cutting them off. I deserve better. I still do. And from now on, I intend to surround myself with people who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. It is time for me to move forward for good, and I will.